Ubisoft, a company that has been around for a long time, they've developed all sorts of games, from the likes of platformers to action-adventure open-world games, with their most noteworthy game franchises being Assassin's Creed and Far Cry. But as of late, Ubisoft is in a pretty bad shape, as they're not doing well financially and even their reputation is at its all-time lowest. They're literally on their last legs right now. Anyway, today I will talk about how this company rose and came to prominence, how it continued to exist over time, and what led the company to reach the place where it is now. So sit back, relax and enjoy this video, like and subscribe if you do, and without further ado, let's dive right in to the rise and fall of Ubisoft. Ubisoft is a French video game company which was founded by the five Guillemot brothers in 1986, more like the Guillotine brothers since they executed their own company, lol. Originally, the company was more of a distributor of video games rather than a company that makes games. They only started developing games in the 90s for PCs and home consoles. Around 1993, the company opened an office in Montreal, Canada, and they continued to expand until 1996, where they were in a position to start acquiring other companies and establish themselves as a major player in the gaming industry. Around 1996, Ubisoft created their first successful game called Rayman. It became one of the flagship franchises of the company and still is today, even though they barely make any Rayman games anymore. The company expanded further from the late 90s to the early 2000s, from opening offices across the US and the UK, and they created some of their most iconic game franchises like Tom Clancy Rainbow Six, Prince of Persia, and of course, Assassin's Creed. They acquired several game studios such as Red Storm Entertainment, who created the Rainbow Six games, and also Reflections Interactive, who created the Driver series, which gave them a diverse set of successful franchises to work with. They continued to expand extensively and also diversify, with a focus on open world, online multiplayer and licensed property games that help put their name out there across the wider gaming market. Their most successful franchise, Assassin's Creed, marked its debut in 2007 and has sold over 200 million units since then. It was seen as a revolutionary game with its focus on a fully explorable open world, its in-depth parkour mechanics, its historical setting, and also its intriguing storyline. Ubisoft were seen as bold risk-takers at that point, always willing and able to do something new and different from their competitors. They were pretty much the trendsetters of the gaming industry in a way, which is a far cry from what they are now. However, after the early 2000s, the company started to face quite a few problems. 2014 was a big year for Ubisoft as they wanted to take full advantage of the next-gen consoles by developing games specifically for them. One such game was Watch Dogs, Ubisoft's brand new IP, which completely blew people away with its gorgeous-looking demo at E3. However, Ubisoft was heavily criticized at its launch as the final version of the game was heavily downgraded from the demo that was shown. Another game which faced massive controversy was Assassin's Creed Unity for being extremely buggy and downright unplayable at launch. This really changed the reputation that people had of Ubisoft, as they really started to rush their games to meet deadlines set by the execs. They overly relied on their annually released franchises like Assassin's Creed, which gave the players a sense of fatigue, as Ubisoft was no longer innovating with their games like they used to. Their games just started to feel very repetitive and formulaic among players, whilst their contemporaries were constantly innovating and really pushing the envelope for gaming. To make things worse, Ubisoft started focusing on the live service games model, which was being done by other companies as well around that time, which was hated by the wider gaming community and still is to this day. This damaged Ubisoft's reputation even more, as they started to design their single-player games to include and promote microtransactions, which angered a lot of players, including me. 2018 was a pretty successful year for Ubisoft, and their video game releases around that time were fairly well liked by the general audience. As much as I'm not a fan of Assassin's Creed Odyssey, as it is a departure from what I liked about the series, I can't deny that it was very well received by casual players and some hardcore fans alike, which primarily could be because of the fatigue that was setting in with the franchise. And Odyssey definitely shaked up the old formula that people were bored with by taking massive inspiration from The Witcher 3. Technically, it was Assassin's Creed Origins that changed the franchise up into an RPG, but Odyssey was definitely seen as more successful. Far Cry 5 was another game which was praised for its intriguing story and beautiful setting, and The Crew 2 is another game that was seen as successful. These games performed pretty well financially, and the stock price of Ubisoft was at its all-time highest. Ubisoft also continued to grow and invest in existing studios like Ubisoft Montreal, Ubisoft Toronto, and Ubisoft San Francisco. They also collaborated with their smaller studios to work on more unique projects. All in all, it's suffice to say that Ubisoft had a pretty great year financially and commercially. However, that would all change with the coming of the pandemic. There is no denying that the COVID-19 pandemic was a hard time for everyone, especially for Ubisoft. It was bad. Internal reports from employees suggested that Ubisoft was a very toxic workplace to work for, as several senior position devs were abusing their positions of power to harass and assault their employees. So the company had to let go of their several high-profile senior executives, and it not only damaged the morale within the company but also further damaged Ubisoft's image and reputation. And even though their annually released game Assassin's Creed Valhalla became the most sold game in the franchise, it was generally disliked by not only the hardcore fans, but also the casual audience that enjoyed Odyssey. Following 2020, Ubisoft saw a continuous decline in not only their financial performance, but also the quality of their games, as time and time again they failed to innovate and made the same repetitive and boring games. And the worst of all, started to actively push players to play their games and also buy their microtransactions, which they continue to include in their single player titles even after all the backlash. They also made really dumb statements like the iconic phrase from the CEO, which was that players need to get comfortable with not owning their games, which certainly did not help their case at all, as they faced massive backlash from the statement alone. Fast forwarding to last year, this was by far Ubisoft's worst year throughout its existence, as most of their game releases sold very poorly. Also, their brand new AC game, AC Shadows, which was supposed to be released last year, was heavily criticized for featuring a black samurai, even though many historians confirmed that there weren't any black samurai around that time. There were also several other controversies that game faced. And with the poor performance of Star Wars Outlaws, which is one of the most expensive games that the company made, Ubisoft decided to delay Shadows to February from the franchise's usual release window of fall. Ubisoft also closed several of its studios, which included Ubisoft Montpellier, which is responsible for Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, which is considered one of the better Ubisoft games to come out in recent times. Their stock price also reached an all-time low. The company is near bankruptcy at the moment, and the CEO and his investors are under talks to sell the company to Tencent. It's sad to see that the company is in such a state. Yet also, I can't help but think that Ubisoft deserves its downfall, as they continue to make dumb decisions which ended up alienating a lot of their audiences. They still continue to make the same boring and generic games which look like extremely dated PS3 games. And lastly, they refuse to listen to criticism not only from their fans but also their own employees, which is discussed in detail in this video by Legendary Drops. Make sure to check it out if you want to know how bad the situation at the company really is. So that was the entire story of the rise and fall of Ubisoft. A company that came from humble beginnings and genuinely pushed for innovation in their games to being a company which is a hollow and soulless shell of its former self. It would be nice to see them make a comeback from this situation, as I do feel for the hardworking devs, but it's highly unlikely given that they need to completely bank on Assassin's Creed Shadows selling well, which probably won't happen given the amount of controversy the game has gotten. And part of me doesn't want to give this company another chance, as I have been doing that for many years now. I do miss what this company was and what it represented, but with what the company has become, I would say it's completely on them, and they do completely deserve what they get. I hope you guys enjoyed this video essay. I can't wait to make more content this year, and I'm super excited to take this channel to the next level. I hope you guys are stoked about this too. And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe, share this video, and don't forget to comment. I would like to hear your thoughts on this matter. Do you really think that Ubisoft deserves to go under? Type your thoughts down in the comments below. But with that being said, I'll see you guys very soon with another video. See ya!